You wake up one night and the moon is wrong. It's not dead, not still, not gray. It's wrapped in moving clouds. Dim auroras ripple at its edges. There are storms, faint flickering across the sea of tranquility. The light is different, softer, warmer, but deeper somehow, like it's breathing. You think it's a dream, but it isn't. The moon has an atmosphere, and that one change, that single layer of invisible pressure, begins to unmake everything you thought was permanent. Tides shift. Shadows behave differently. The balance between Earth and its twin begins to tilt. The night sky becomes unfamiliar. You look up, it looks back, and the silence that once protected us is now filled with wind. She stands on the rooftop, watching. She doesn't blink, and neither does the moon. What if the stillest thing we know suddenly moved? We take the moon for granted. A white coin in the sky, a symbol, a background. But the truth is stranger. The moon isn't just empty. It's impossible. It shouldn't be there. It's too big for a planet like Earth. Its orbit is too perfect. And its silence, its lack of air, is a clue. Because air is rare, atmospheres are fragile, and the moon lost its chance long ago. Let's start with gravity. The moon has only 1/6 the gravity of Earth. It can't hold gases the way we do. Molecules escape like heat from a broken window, one by one, forever. Even if it had an atmosphere once, volcanic, ancient, raw, the solar wind stripped it bare. No magnetosphere to protect it, no pressure to contain it, no core movement to regenerate it. The moon is a fossil, not just of rock, but of potential. That's why it's quiet. But what if somehow that changed? Imagine a comet redirected, icy matter crashing into the lunar surface, vaporizing, releasing carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor, billions of tons. Now imagine magnetic shields placed at lunar Lagrange points, protecting that thin veil from solar erosion. Technology as atmosphere, engineering as sky. It's not magic, it's physics rewritten, barely, but possible, just barely. Now let's say it happens, slowly, over decades, over centuries. The moon begins to hold air, not much, a tenth of Earth's pressure maybe, enough to blur the stars behind it, enough to bend light at the horizon, enough for weather, primitive, erratic, electric. And suddenly our sky isn't alone anymore. She sees it first, a flicker, not in the moon, but in its shadow, like breath catching in a cold room. She doesn't say anything, just watches, because it's not just atmosphere, it's presence. What would it feel like to walk on the moon if it had weather? Not in a sealed suit, not floating in vacuum, but breathing, standing in dust as wind brushes past your skin, looking up as a low curtain of clouds drifts across a horizon only 1/6 as wide as Earth's. The sky would be darker, bluer near the sun, then quickly turning to black. And if you waited long enough, if the temperatures dropped just right, there might even be frost, maybe even rain. Not like Earth's rain, but a slow, granular precipitation. Ice crystals falling in silence, no thunder, just the sound of wind over powder. Let's build it. A thin lunar atmosphere, let's say mostly carbon dioxide with trace nitrogen and water vapor, would be enough for basic meteorology. We'd see pressure differentials across the sunlit and shadowed regions, creating jet streams along the lunar terminator, cyclonic eddies forming in massive craters like Tycho and Copernicus. Dust storms, not Martian scale, but fine veils of motion that drift across basalt plains, and every now and then, lightning. Because in low-pressure systems, even weak turbulence can create charge. Now imagine standing at the edge of the Aristarchus Plateau. The sun is low, the shadows are long. The regolith beneath you crackles slightly with static. Above, a storm curls around the crater, not violent but restless. A coil of cloud turning slowly. You can see light shimmering in it. It's not water, it's charged ice refracting like fractured glass. And beneath it all, motion. Not tectonic, not volcanic, atmospheric. A system. This isn't the moon we know, this is a weathering moon, and the implications are immediate. For one, the surface would change. Dust isn't stable in moving air. Over time, the familiar high-contrast surface, the dark Maria and bright highlands would begin to blur. Subtle erosion, sand lifted and shifted. Old craters softened, new features carved by wind. The moon's visual memory would fade. More than that, the reflectivity would shift. Albedo, once consistent, would fluctuate with cloud cover and wind-worn surfaces. And that means Earth's nightlight, the moonlight, would flicker. Nights would no longer be fixed. They would pulse, and people would notice. They always do. She's walking across a salt flat, no light but what the sky gives. But tonight, The moon pulses like it's breathing, like something inside it is alive and turning. She stops, and for the first time, she feels watched. The moon has always been a mirror, cold, consistent, and mute, a metronome for tides, a sculptor of rhythms. Its silence shaped the biological clockwork of Earth, from coral blooms to menstrual cycles, from insect migrations to the pull of oceans. But give that moon an atmosphere, give it motion, variability, presence, and everything downstream begins to shift. Let's start with the obvious, light. A moon with clouds wouldn't shine the way we remember. Reflected light would scatter. Some nights the glow would dim behind dense vapor. Others it would intensify, bouncing off ice crystals or high-altitude haze. Moon phases would still exist, but their brightness, color, and duration would flicker. Predictability replaced by mood. Now shift your gaze downward to Earth. Moonlight affects life. Nocturnal hunters depend on its rhythm. Hatchlings follow it to the sea. Some flowers open only under full moons. But what happens when that rhythm turns unstable? When the moon becomes a variable sky, not a clock? We don't know, but we can guess. Circadian systems might falter. Some animals could lose their navigational cues. Mating cycles may misalign. Ocean tides, governed in part by the moon's mass and proximity, would react, especially if atmospheric drag slightly alters orbital decay or shifts gravitational pressure. The results might be minor, or not. A 1% change in tidal amplitude can flood a village. Now scale that across coastlines, across calendars, across generations. The moon would no longer just reflect light, it would cast influence, active, mutating, and we would feel it. Culturally, the change would be seismic. The moon has always been a canvas for belief. Myth, ritual, a fixed thing we project dreams onto. But if it breathed, if it churned, what would we believe then? Would we revere it more or trust it less? Would we worship a moon that looks like it's alive? She sits in an empty subway car, watching the moon through a scratched window. Clouds twist across its surface like thoughts, not fast, but not still either. She blinks, and suddenly it feels like a face, a changing face. It sounds like science fiction, and it is for now. But we've already done stranger things. We've split atoms, redirected asteroids, built machines that learn. So let's ask the real question. Not what if the moon had an atmosphere, but could we give it one? Terraforming is a dangerous word. It implies control, mastery, dominion. But in practice, it's chaos in disguise. Because to terraform something like the moon, we'd have to alter the most fundamental things it lacks. Gravity, magnetism, mass. And yet, there are pathways. The simplest concept is volatiles. We could redirect comets, real icy bodies, into lunar collision courses. Each impact would deliver frozen gases, carbon dioxide, ammonia, methane, water. Enough of them, and you'd seed a primitive atmosphere. Another option? Mining lunar regolith. It contains trapped oxygen in the form of metal oxides. With enough energy, fusion level perhaps, we could extract breathable gases directly from the rock. But even with air, the problem isn't supply, it's loss. The moon's gravity is too weak to hold an atmosphere for long, so we'd need containment. One theory: place an artificial magnetic shield at the Earth-Moon L1 point, the gravitational balance between the two bodies. With enough energy, such a field could deflect solar wind, preserving any atmosphere we manage to build. It's not efficient, it's not stable, but technically, it's possible. And the ethics? That's harder. What is the moon to us? A destination, a relic, a backdrop, or something sacred? Because the moment we give it breath, we also give it responsibility. We change its role in the system. It stops being a passive memory of formation and becomes something that reacts, and we don't know what that will mean. What happens to myth when the moon gets weather? What happens to time? She's in a laboratory, not future tech, present day. Screens hum, a simulation plays, clouds drifting over the moon's surface, a model fed with real data. She watches as pressure builds, swirls emerge, currents form. It's mesmerizing, beautiful, and wrong. She smiles, but not like she's happy, like she's crossed a line she can't explain. Before it was a place, the moon was a story. We saw gods in its craters, omens in its eclipses, secrets in its silence. We built calendars around its rhythm, buried the dead under its phases, named entire nights by its glow. The moon didn't just orbit Earth, it orbited meaning. But if the moon breathes, if it changes, then so do we. Because it's not just a satellite, it's a symbol. And symbols don't survive transformation without a cost. Think about what we've already lost. Stars that used to guide us now vanish behind city light. Seasons blur under climate shift. Even time zones are digital illusions. And yet the moon remained, unedited, untouched, the last analog object in a pixelated world. Now imagine that old moon, its face softening under atmosphere, its scars fading behind vapor, its stillness replaced with motion. Would we still write poetry about it? Would we still believe it watches over us? Or would we turn away, uncomfortable with the idea that even the sky isn't permanent? This is more than nostalgia. It's physics meeting culture in collision. Because the moon doesn't need to be alive to matter. It matters because it's dead. Because it holds a kind of silence that nothing else does. A silence that reminds us we're moving, that the universe is still. What do we lose if we fill that silence? She walks through a museum, dim, quiet, almost empty. In one room, a screen loops footage of the moon, modern and altered. Clouds swirl over its surface. Annotations flicker. Simulated lunar climate pattern, version 12. She pauses, looks up at a photo behind the glass. The old moon, shadowed, pocked, bare. She doesn't smile, because some things weren't meant to change. And when they do, they don't come back. This isn't about the moon, not really. It's about what happens when something we thought was finished isn't. When something we thought was mute speaks. When a world we counted as still, static, solved stirs. Because a breathing moon would change more than tides or skies. It would change how we hold certainty, how we trust silence, how we draw the line between living and not. The moon has always been our reference point, the control in the experiment, the fixed variable in the shifting sky. To change it is to remove the anchor, and without that anchor, motion becomes exponential. Possibility multiplies. Everything is in play. And maybe that's terrifying, or maybe it's a gift. Because what if the moon breathing means more than a hypothetical? What if it means we can terraform not just planets, but assumptions? What if it shows us that even the coldest, oldest things are not beyond transformation? We always imagine space as conquest, but maybe it's reflection. She stands on a balcony, wind moves gently through her hair. The moon above is quiet again, dry, sharp, lifeless, a return to form. But she imagines it differently now. She imagines the weight of air pressing on its surface, the slow build of cloud, the chance that silence is just a pause, not an end. And in that thought, in that flicker of impossible realism, she sees herself, still, but not unchanging. Because that's the truth the moon gives back, that nothing dead stays dead, that even the coldest things remember heat, that silence is not the same as absence. And if the moon could breathe, what else might follow?